Okay, ladies and gentlemen, very good afternoon. Actually, a very good morning still. Wonder why it feels like afternoon, maybe because I woke up at 6 in the morning. A very good morning. We had a wonderful session just before this one. Very enlightening for Gerald, telling us a lot of things, some of which, get us thinking on the impact of travel and tourism on our lives and the lives of people in general. This session is a session for the presidential perspective, which we're really talking about views from CEOs in the business on Asia Pacific, Asia, and of course their views on Sri Lanka as well. And I've been I raised my hand to do this panel, and I'm deeply, deeply regretting it because originally Monita was meant to do this in the original plan, and then for some reason I stuck out my hand and said, listen, I will do this panel just because we are strategic partners, and I thought we should be actively involved in this, and I deeply regret doing that. I would be much happier sitting in the audience, and I think all you gentlemen and you gentlemen there would have been happier speaking to a young, pretty lady rather than a large old man. But having said that, I still have a job to do, and let's start talking about the perspective of these wonderfully accomplished CEOs. Quickly, to introduce everybody on the panel, Peter Henley is the president for ONYX Hospitality Group, headquartered in Thailand. Andreas Mattmuller is the Chief Operating Officer, Middle East and South Asia for Movenpick Hotels and Resorts. Raj Rana, to my left, is the Chief Executive Officer, South Asia for Carlson Rezidor Hotels. And Hansen Zhao is President of Dossen International from China. I'm going to start with you, Peter. You started growing the brand, which was initially just a single brand, Amari, and after you joined and took over the reins, you decided that you would like to bring a well-established Thai hospitality brand outside of Thailand, and looked at opportunities in the Indian Ocean, and have since, I think, moved to about 9 countries in Asia. And it's been a fairly interesting journey. And you, I think, have 3 hotels in Sri Lanka, 2 operating and 1 in the pipeline, right? So tell us a little bit about ONYX and the journey.
Thank you, Mandeep. Good morning, everybody. I've been on panels a fair bit over my years, and I've always tried to have a tactic so I wouldn't have to start every time. So I sit either next to the presenter or first away from him or on his left or his right. It never works. Somehow it always ends up with me starting. So I'm sorry to impose myself on you right from the word go. But yes, Mandeep is right. I look after ONYX Hospitality Group. It's a privately held Thai company. We've been around about 50 years, more than 50 years actually. And for the large majority of that, until about 10 years ago, very much Thailand focused. It had built a very good reputation. Many of you, I think, have probably stayed in our properties in Thailand, have been around a long time. As we have one brand, which is Amari, which is our full service 4.5-star brand. But with a sort of generational change in the family, it decided to, 10 years ago, see if we could take that good reputation out for a drive around the region to see if we could expand and grow the company and take it to the next level. So as Mandeep kindly says, we've grown from 11 branded properties in Thailand only with one brand, and we now have 42 properties open around the region, about 27 being built. We have 3 brands which we operate, and as Mandeep kindly says, we are in 8 countries now from then. So it's been a pretty exciting and interesting journey. We're kind of halfway through, 80% through a kind of our initial plan, and indeed we're now looking at what happens next. And specifically in this area, it's a very big focus for us, this area. We call it a corridor. It's a very big corridor which has Bangladesh, India, Sri Lanka, and the Indian Ocean in it. It's one of our focus points for growth in the future. And we've managed to make a start there. We have properties in Bangladesh. We have two, as Andy said here, one in Colombo, one in Kandy, open one about to be developed in Gaul, about to open next year. And then we have a property in the Maldives and more to come. So this is a very important focus for us, not only for growth in the opportunities, but actually what's interesting is that we choose these areas because of their importance to us in Thailand. It's our home base. We own properties in Thailand. So what's very important for us is to heighten our profile, as it were, in countries like Sri Lanka, like India. So encourage people to come to Thailand as well. But equally, though, we think that there's a certain synergy of between Thailand and Sri Lanka and India and this area, which we think we can add value to in the future years. So we're very proud and honored to be here in this beautiful country, and I look forward to trying to help the industry grow. Our company looks forward to helping the industry grow in the coming years.
Thank you, Peter. Andy, Movenpick Hotels, also in 8 countries in Asia Pacific, including an interesting location I found, which is Pakistan. Not many people venture there. And of course, you're just about to open at 10:33 a.m. on the 7th of January, your Movenpick Hotel in Colombo. Have I let the cat out of the bag, or is it okay to tell the world?
Yes, it is fine. We'll send you an invitation for the opening.
All right. And it's specific. It's got to be 10:33 a.m. in the morning.
It's an auspicious date and time.
Tell us a little about the Movenpick journey.
In Asia, we call it feng shui.
Yeah, feng shui.
Oh,
Sure. So tell us a little about your journey in Movenpick.
Good. The journey started in 1948, and we not only have a good ice cream, which now belongs to Nestle. I'm sure you know the Movenpick ice cream. It's very popular. But we started, our founder, Uli Prager, started in the food business. And only in 1973, we had our first hotel. And then the company started to develop into the Middle East, in particular into Egypt. And we did very well there. So I'm an old-timer. I'm one of those guys who is a long time in a company. It's now 15 years. So I joined the company with a mission to develop the brand in the Middle East. We now have 32 hotels in operation in the Middle East, 15 projects under construction. And about 6 years ago, we started to go into Asia. We are a private company, and our minority shareholder bought the hotel in Phuket, a 350-room hotel, and that actually brought us to Asia. The strategy we really had is to focus on 4 areas: Europe, Africa, Middle East, and Asia, without going to Australia or the States or South America. And we strongly believe in a cluster development, because in each area there's a lot of intra-regional travel, and it helped us a lot to build a very strong brand awareness. Like in the Middle East, we have one of the strongest brand awareness. BDRC London did that survey, and that really helped us. So yes, the focus is now on South Asia, Southeast Asia. We're having 5 hotels in Vietnam, 1 in operation and 4 under construction. We currently operate 5 hotels in Thailand. 1 will be branded Movenpick after the renovation. And going into Malaysia, Philippines, we're just going to open a hotel in Boracay, a resort hotel. Actually, a third of our hotels are resort hotels. And as you say, Sri Lanka, which is a great destination, and we're going to open on the 7th of January. I toured the hotel yesterday, and we are ready to rock and roll.
Great. Wonderful, Andy.
10:33.
10:33, don't forget. Raj, you've been an old hand, like Andy, in Carlson Hotels, if I may say. And the operative word is not old as in old, as in a long-standing player in the team. And you've recently taken over the South Asia mantle for developing Carlson Rezidor hotels in the region. But in Asia, in Southeast Asia, reasonable presence, about 105 operating hotels, I think, and close to 90 odd under development, and close to about 30 odd thousand rooms between operating and development in the pipeline. So tell us a little bit about how you look at Asia Pacific and what's the journey, rather Asia, and what's the journey been like?
Well, thank you, Mandeep. I represent Carlson Rezidor. As some of you may know, we have about 1,400 hotels in almost 105 countries and territories. You may be more familiar with our brands Radisson Blu, Radisson, Park Plaza, Country Inns and Suites, Park Inn, Curvus, and so on and so forth. Earlier this year, we announced that Carlson Rezidor has been acquired by HNA, which is a Chinese conglomerate and a Fortune 500 company, We are looking forward for that transaction to close by the end of this year, as that will help us further thrive our hospitality business with their focus on tourism and hospitality. But closer to Asia Pacific, we are operating in 11 countries with almost 20,000 rooms, as you said, and we continue to grow rapidly. We have been in China for about 20 years and in India for about 25 years, and we are continuing to grow in countries where we are not. We have special interest in Sri Lanka, where we have 2 hotels signed and under development, but we believe the potential with India just being a neighbor of China, of Sri Lanka, is immense, and we look forward to growing our relationship in this part of the world.
Great, Raj. Hansen, big development in China. I was astounded to read about the history of your hotel group, 10 years old, with now clocking close to 1,000 hotels. How does that ever happen? And I think it can happen only in China, right? And you're looking at growing in or sort of expanding your presence outside of China, and now you're looking at Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka obviously now becoming, I think, the second largest tourism arrivals. Probably will beat India. China doesn't like coming second in any place, I know. So it's only a matter of time where you will overtake everybody else. And so possibly a huge potential here in this market for you guys. Tell us a little bit about the journey at Dossen Hotels.
Thank you, Mandeep. Actually, we have around 900 hotels currently. By the end of this year, hopefully, the number is going to be 1,000, but most of the hotels are in China mainland now. And actually, we are number 8 in China. We're not 2, 1, 3, something, So, but actually, we have some hotels open outside China. 3 years ago in KL, Malaysia. We also have some, partners in South Korea, Belarus, and Myanmar. So, but we see, a lot of potential opportunities outside China, but I have to say we are still quite new. For me here, it's my first time to visit Sri Lanka. It's a great potential, great country, but I think first of all, we need to have a longer plan, long-term strategy to understand local market, to have, strong local partner, to have a different strategy. Don't like Carlson, you are very strong, worldwide, but we're quite young outside China. So I think it's time for us to learn something from you guys and also find some new opportunities.
Wonderful, Hansen, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of opportunities, at least quite certainly in Sri Lanka, as there will be in other parts of Asia. But coming back to a little bit on a broader discussion now, Peter, back to you. In your development strategy in ONYX, what part of Asia are you really focusing on? What do you think is going to be the big sort of area within Asia where you are really focused and will probably see the maximum growth in as much as ONYX is concerned?
I alluded to this a little bit in relation to this area. We focus on the areas, obviously, we think with the greatest growth. And for us, it's sort of five blocks, if you like, that we focus on. Clearly, Thailand is and will continue to be really important to us. All the countries that kind of touch or nearly touch, what we call near abroad, Thailand are important. Vietnam, Malaysia, Laos, Cambodia, Myanmar, all around there are very important to us. And then you've got China, obviously. And then this corridor I mentioned earlier of the sort of Southwest Asia. And then the Middle East is more of a sort of urban specific location strategy. But in terms of blocks of territory, it's really split into those 4 or 5 plus, of course, Australia and Indonesia. So it's those sort of 5 blocks that we're focusing on. And within those, I think the flavors of the month, as it were, for us right now are Australia, Vietnam, China, clearly, India, and then the Indian Ocean, as it were. To us, Sri Lanka is a really important area for us. If you actually look at my operating hotels this year to date, every single hotel is in the red from its budget, except for Sri Lanka. So it's taken on a greater importance than we ever thought it would. But I think for us, Sri Lanka and the Indian Ocean and the Maldives is a very important focus for us.
Right. And if I was to ask you to stick your head out and say, if there's one country where you think you will have the maximum growth, what country would that be?
I think here. I mean, I'm not just saying that because I'm sitting here. So the reason
I was about to say that not because we're sitting in Sri Lanka.
No, it's not. That's why I'm sitting here, right? It's because in terms of absolute numbers, obviously we'll have more properties elsewhere in other countries. But in terms of the growth speed, as it were, I think, or the focus will be very much here. We really see a potential for it here. And so I think of that, clearly China will be, in terms of openings for us, we've got some traction there. And I think the other sort of big country for us to focus on, and I think we're really starting to see things happen now, is Vietnam. But I mean it when I say that I think Sri Lanka, India, Sri Lanka, and the Maldives will be a very important focus for us.
Thank you. Andy, I was surprised to sort of learn that your largest development is in the Middle East. I would have thought Movenpick would be a more European, spread or distribution. But tell me what's happening in Asia for you, and is there a focus on Asia?
Yes, definitely. As I mentioned earlier, when you're a small company like us, a private company, you cannot open too many fronts. There's no need to have 2 hotels in South America, 2 in America, 2 in China, because the hotels need to be supported by area offices. And we do, for example, centralized revenue management. We add a lot of value to the hotels through those offices. So when you spread yourself too thinly, you start losing hotels again. Therefore, our strategy was to first focus on the Middle East, and that was about 15 years ago. And 7 years ago, we started to develop in Asia. You mentioned Pakistan. We had the opportunity to take over an existing hotel, renovate it. We added Islamabad, and now we are concluding Lahore as well. So when I talk about cluster, it's always good to have a cluster of a few hotels in the same country. And this is our strategy. So yes, that's why we are here. This is a key destination, Sri Lanka. It's a wonderful country, wonderful heritage, great people. We have a lot of people from Sri Lanka working in our hotels in the Middle East. Some of them transferred to the opening of our hotel here.
Yeah.
So we see a great potential. We are about to conclude a deal in the Maldives and then Southeast Asia in particular. So again, we decided not to go to the States, not to go to Australia. Australia, you can make good money, but payroll costs are very high, taxation is very high. So let's go where there is the least resistance. And in Asia, you still can produce very good results.
And you're not as focused on China, perhaps, as some of the other hotel companies are.
Again, our view about China is it's a huge country, and you need to go in there in a big way. If you start in an organic way to grow your brand, it's very difficult.
Right.
It's like in America. If you want to grow in the States, the best is to buy a company with 50 hotels. And Americans like American brands. And I worked previously for other companies. They have a few hotels in the States. I don't mention them in my previous life. And I realized the difficulties we had to commercialize those hotels. And
Sure.
China, you need to speak Mandarin. You need to know everything is in Mandarin there, and you need to have a setup and the support office rather than going in. So again, considering the size of our company, let's be very focused in our development. That's what we're doing, and focus those areas, where we can manage it very well and deliver good results for our owners.
In terms of size, you're about 83.
83 hotels,
83
20,000 available rooms.
20,000.
Yes.
Great.
And 25 hotels under construction.
Wow, wonderful. Raj, you're a significant player in Asia Pacific in as much as your portfolio is concerned, and almost 30,000 rooms, including what you have in the pipeline. But tell me, what's the region within Asia that excites you the most?
Well, for sure, in India we have 140 hotels in operation and under development, with the goal to touch 170 by 2020. But I think our focus right now is not only on India, but Indonesia, Thailand, China, and India. And most recently, our push for Sri Lanka, because Sri Lanka has a deficit of branded hotel inventory. We have 60% of the hotels which are, I would not say mom and pop operation, but smaller unorganized sector hotels. And then we have very good, well-established independent hotels. So Sri Lanka of late is very interesting to us to see whether it is from the point of view of conversion prospects, because I do believe the Sri Lankan hospitality will move towards branded inventory as their reach and their desire to get higher paying global customers or global guests increases. So we want to be in Sri Lanka single focused to be a welcome brand and grow our footprint here.
Right. Hansen, so outside of China, what seems to be the areas of interest within Asia? Where do you think you're going to be focusing your energies in growing your I think you have 8 brands, your own brands, and I think you also have some kind of a master franchise with Marriott for the Fairfield Inns in China.
Yeah. So our first focus now is Southeast Asia and Europe. We're trying to have our first headquarters outside China in Bangkok, maybe next year, and we're also planning to have a European headquarters in Berlin probably. So you can see a lot of Chinese people, they like to go to Thailand, Bangkok, Phuket Island, something. It's very convenient for them. It's cheap.
Now Chinese people like to go to every corner of the world. You heard Carol say
it's not cheap, Hansen.
100
Good value.
100 million outbound travelers out of China.
Yeah, but South Korea and Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia, always be their first choice. It's very easy to get visa on arrival, like Thailand and Indonesia. It's very easy, and it's also very cheap. So I think our investors from China, they also have some plan to invest outside China. So I think we have to give these kind of investment and path opportunity for them. So it's kind of bring China money outside China. So last year is very key year for my understanding. After 30 years, last year is kind of net investment from China to outside China. So I think it's kind of a trend, I have to say, but it still needs some time to build the model for the money. It's not as big as Hainan Airline. It's small money, small investment. But it's also very important because, like us, our mainstream is kind of budget premium segment. So it's not big money, but a lot of investors is not traditional hotelers investor, but they are trying to have their balance the investment. So I think it's also kind of trend for us. For Europe, Europe is very, how to say, a lot of people from China, they just love Europe. They have history, long history. So probably we're gonna, acquisite a kind of hotel brand from Europe. I think as a global company, we have to have some brand with history.
Right.
So.
But tell me, Hansen, would you? So, for example, your mainstay you said is sort of premium economy. And I think that in Sri Lanka, there would be a fair potential for premium economy, given that in the organized sector in Sri Lanka, there isn't very much of that.
Yeah.
And as tourism grows, and with more and more Indian, Chinese, and Europeans coming into Sri Lanka, there will perhaps be a large need for premium economy hotels. Would you look at investing some money here? If that was to be, if you were looking at Sri Lanka, would you invest, or would you look at the asset-light model?
It's still too early to say, but I think I've been told many, many times about Sri Lanka, Colombo, a lot of opportunities here. So I think that's why, that's the reason why I'm here this time. I think it's kind of starting stage to understand the local market, to find the right approach to the market.
Sure, but you're not shy of investing if that was to be.
Yeah, but I think for us, it's kind of stage 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we can do it paralyzed.
Yeah, sure. Peter, you started, I think, with a joint venture in Sri Lanka, if I'm not mistaken. Or is it just a asset-light?
Just asset-light. Right?
It's just asset-light in Sri Lanka. So you're not really invested any money in the Ozos and the Amaris that you're doing here?
We haven't on the existing ones, but we may well do in the future, having got going with the 2 properties, which are the 3 properties we have in Sri Lanka are all owned by the same owner. And we're looking now, discussing with him now, doing further opportunities, and we may well, it's our strategy generally, certainly for Ozo properties and Sharma properties, which are rooms-driven type of products, if it needs a bit of investment, then we're always open to having that discussion.
So you're not shy of investing, is what I was trying to get at,
No.
is that if there was a requirement and you felt convinced,
Yep.
you could bring some money
Yep.
into a JV
Yep.
or some kind
Yep.
of a structure where you would invest in Sri Lanka.
Certainly in relation to our focus for investment outside of Thailand would be in Ozo and Sharma properties, which are more rooms-driven. We see the great potential for growth with those 2 brands. And that therefore, if some money was required in some form or some support was required in some form to help accelerate that growth in the region as a whole, and Sri Lanka is part of it, then we'd certainly look at it. As you know, I used to be a lawyer, so I always answer that question by saying it depends. Right? It depends.
Yeah, which could mean anything.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Right. Andy, largely asset-light, or would you?
Asset-light, we do have lease agreements in Europe, and all over the rest of the world, it's pure management agreements. We have a single brand, focus, no debts, and just be focused on that brand.
Right.
So only management agreements.
So clear strategy will be management agreements.
That's
You're not really looking
No.
at putting any of your own equity
No.
into any of these destinations. Raj, similar, I would think, for Carlson?
Yeah, the variation being that although we primarily are asset light and into management, but we're open to franchising as well, because there are plenty of owners that have good experience, and we believe that they can be trusted to managing our brands. But as far as growth is concerned, we do organic growth, but we do not shy away from strategic or opportunistic investment in real estate. Opportunistic as in for the right value, and strategic as in, for example, providing halo effect in a certain location or for a longer term vision of the company. But yeah, dominantly asset light. So thank you.
Yeah, right. Raj, I'm coming back to you. If we were to sort of just do a quick synopsis of why do you think Sri Lanka is important for you?
Well, we heard the tourism minister and many other illustrious speakers talk about Sri Lanka. The fact that tourism inbound is growing so exponentially with a target of almost 5 million tourists by 2020, the current inventory in Sri Lanka is not enough to accommodate that pace. That's one part. Secondly, I do believe that just like China and India, the domestic tourism in Sri Lanka will also increase, which itself creates a mid-scale brand demand. So on one hand, I think Sri Lanka can target higher paying higher paying foreigners or arrivals from overseas. And on the other hand, I think domestic tourism will also play a game. So this unorganized sector which is there, if there were hotels that could, that fire life safety could be tackled, I think there is opportunity for conversion and bringing up the standard of those hotels. And then as I said earlier, for independent hotels also, they will soon start realizing that the power of loyalty or international brands, as some of us we have on the stage, and there are many others out there, they will become significant players. And to compete with those international players, I think some of the independent hotels, which are very good in quality, strong operators, strong numbers, will probably look to brands. And with that, this is the reason why we see opportunity in Sri Lanka, and that's why we are here. This is my third time in Sri Lanka this year alone.
Oh, wonderful.
So we are excitedly looking forward to more growth here.
Hansen, why Sri Lanka? Any particular reasons? I know you're still sort of, it's early days for you, but any thoughts on why you'd like to be in Sri Lanka?
Yeah, you know, two of my friends told me about Sri Lanka. It's just like, they told me exactly, you know, it's just like 20 years China. So you can understand in the past 15 years for budget hotel, for chain hotels, it's a huge, tremendous increase in China. So we also, you know, see this kind of potential in Sri Lanka. As Mr. Raj just mentioned, it's kind of domestic travel will increase very tremendously. So I think it's kind of opportunity for all the people like us.
Peter, you were amongst the earlier movers here, and you obviously must have seen some reason of coming into Sri Lanka almost 3, 4, 5 years ago. So what's been the driving force, and what do you see in Sri Lanka which makes you believe that there's going to be a lot of growth here?
Well, there were kind of a number of reasons why we focused on Sri Lanka to start with. Because it was, we started with a general strategy for growth and where we want to be, and frankly, from Thailand, one of the reasons we chose particular areas was their ease of getting to and from Bangkok. We don't want to be traveling like Andy says to America or Europe. So, you know, from Thailand, this is so accessible as a destination. So therefore, we could manage that growth successfully from Thailand, if you like. Secondly, it was very clear, certainly to us, and I think to everyone in this room, that there, with the ending of the war, that the potential of this island for growth was quite huge, because it has, frankly, all the things that you need to have a wonderful tourism destination. It has all the things that Thailand has, and more, probably. To do.
And which were not accessible for many years.
Yeah, not accessible for many years, and suddenly it's a new place available to everybody. So, but it was very clear that there were limited supply around. So therefore, it seemed to us a pretty obvious place to do it. Secondly, to be honest, it was partly defensive for us, as it were, because with this new area opening up, we could see lots of people, certainly in the European markets, but equally all the markets that came traditionally to Thailand, saying, oh, new area to go, we'll go to Sri Lanka. In some cases, it's easier to get there, whether it be Indians or Europeans or Middle East, easier to get there than frankly. Therefore, we wanted to be able to say to our guests who now want to have a new experience, well, don't go and stay with Andy. Come and stay. We've got places you can stay, right? We don't want them to be. So we wanted to try and provide for our guests that travel somewhere for them to stay. And thirdly, most importantly, probably, is that, you know, as the chief executive and being English, you know, there are certain, you know, privileges one can do, and I wanted to have a country where they played cricket. So I could come
and you all love
and
cricket.
watch it. So I said, okay, that's a good reason for any to come to. So, but no, seriously, it is a very obvious first stop for us.
And yesterday, you know, we saw a presentation about a cricket museum hotel. So opportunity there, interesting.
See, I was right.
Andy, you've got a hotel opening up. So how did that happen? How did that first hotel in Colombo happen? What brought you here?
As a lot has already been said, but this was a sleeping beauty for about 25 years during the conflict. And I think, first of all, it's the people here. It's what Sri Lanka has to offer. We heard it this morning. I don't want to repeat. And this is why we are here. We saw an opportunity now. The conflict stopped. So let's go in. They are there, and there's a huge potential for growth. I remember when I was in Thailand in 1987, we had Thailand Rezidor, and we had in the first target 10 million visitors. Now there are 30 million visitors in a country 30 years later. And this can be replicated, and it's right. We have a customer base. We have a third of our hotels are resort hotels. There's business travel coming here as well, and these people want to see something new. And it is very well located. It's easily accessible, as Peter said. And when I looked at the numbers, we have year-to-date until October 1.6 million visitors. 500,000 are from Europe, 400,000 from South Asia, 350,000 from Southeast Asia, and the rest is the rest. Middle East is 100 or 94. So you could see the people come from everywhere. So location is very good, and you can attract markets, source markets from everywhere to come to Sri Lanka.
Interesting.
Has a lot to offer.
So I think the general consensus seems to be that Sri Lanka definitely has a lot to offer, and everybody is actively looking at this region and would like to grow their brands within this region. But I think before we end this discussion, I'd like to sort of address the elephant in the room, which typically happens is about sustainability. Tourism and sustainability, although a lot is spoken about it, I often believe normally don't go together very easily. And we are blamed for, ruining environments in a lot of places. Yesterday, the Honorable Minister during his speech, was talking about how they are going to be very, very fussy about environment protection in Sri Lanka, and they don't want haphazard growth to happen. And just for the sake of growing, you don't want to end up impacting the environment. So a quick round of how all of you are dealing with sustainability within the regions that you're working in, and what do you think about tourism and sustainability? Can they really go hand in hand? Is that really possible? Peter?
No, they definitely can go hand in hand. We are part of the Green Globe program, the whole company. We have about 94% of the hotels are already certified by Green Globe. And this actually works, and you can also save a lot of money because it's about energy saving, efficiencies. It's the whole sustainability. It's not only recycling garbage and things like that. And also we hire handicapped people. It's about what we do to the community in terms of charity. We always want to give back in every location where we operate hotels. So we have one of the highest scores in Green Globe. So my advice is it's good to go with an outside company, an independent company who comes and audits the hotels, and pushes it rather than having an internal program. And that helped us a lot to raise the bar and get Green Globe certification, which is international.
Peter, generally the feeling is that hoteliers do a lot of this environment for the outside world, not necessarily believing that investment in sustainability is generating the dividends that we probably would want. But having said that, what's your view? What do you do in ONYX in sustainable development?
And I think it's not a question of can tourism and sustainability coexist. They have to. They have to. Because as you can see in certain parts of Thailand, if you don't, you're going to kill the goose that lays the golden egg very quickly. And I think not only can we do it, we must be doing it. And furthermore, from our perspective, it's actually not for PR. It's not to say, oh, we're doing good things and we're giving back to the community. It actually makes financial sense in many cases. And these days, both the people who come and work in the organization, different generation from us, as it were, for the travelers and the people who work in our hotels of that generation, of the next generation after us, are much more aware, and they're making their decisions based upon the sustainability of the way we operate a business or the way we build a hotel. They're making decisions based on that. Are you looking after the environment? Are you looking after your people properly? And I will make my decision based on that. So if we don't do it, it has very bad commercial impact, as much as there being an impact on the environment. So I think it's an imperative for us, and we take it incredibly seriously. But in Asia generally, and in Thailand specifically, it's a question of education, and it's a question of educating your partners, your suppliers, your employees, your own staff, as it were, about the importance of it and the benefits of it, frankly. And I think a lot of the companies, a lot of us are beginning to really be in a good position in that relation.
Right. Raj, a lot of work on sustainability in Carlson?
Indeed, as my colleagues have said, from site selection, site development, so that we respect the environment around it, to LEED certified training, construction, because much of the environment protection can go into the construction phase itself. For example, do we need a carpet in the guest room? Probably not, because they're recycled and they're a strain on the environment. So carbon footprint to focus is much. And then, of course, operations, whether it's plastic bottles, whether it is energy conserving measures. So there's a host of attention being given to this subject. Can more be done? Indeed. So it is not about us not just washing the towels every day. There's more that can be done. Yeah. I think much of that effort has to come into the construction phase itself, or recycling of water. In most of our hotels now, the water that goes into the toilets is recycled, sewage treated, and then is put back into landscaping, odor-free. So there are steps that we are actively taking to make sure that we are behaving responsibly in this area. Thank you.
Hansen, within your group, do you do some work on environment protection, sustainable development?
Yeah, of course. 2 weeks ago, we have meeting with Loha from a Japanese hotel group. We have very deep discussion about the healthy and the green power, the sustainable of the industry. I think it's a great opportunity for us to make a kind of a next generation of the industry.
Wonderful. We're running out of time, but I want 30 seconds from each panelist on just 1 or 2 thoughts on what can Sri Lanka do, or what does Sri Lanka need to do to make itself a more attractive destination?
I think, I think 30 seconds, we've heard, I think there's an acknowledgement already about infrastructure and the like, and open skies and the flights and that sort of stuff. So that's all been said. But I think, as per your last point, that Sri Lanka, I think, has the opportunity to actually show the world about sustainable tourism. And if it takes that opportunity, then I think it will really place it at the forefront of tourism on a worldwide basis, I'd say.
Sure. Andy?
I think, again, a lot has been said already in terms of infrastructure. I think consistency in policies, because what happens in those countries, every time the government changes, there are new policies coming out. So this consistency is very important. To have a vision, have a master plan, and to have the implementation of the plan. Because we see very often plans are made and they're not being implemented. And I also believe that, of course, working very closely, the government has to work very closely with the private industry and attract overseas investments, which was mentioned earlier this morning. And I personally see a very good potential for an integrated resort. If you look at, for example, El Guna in Egypt, or you look at Laguna area in Phuket, or Nusa Dua in Indonesia, to have several brands, to have a golf course, have a shopping, have zip lining, have mountain biking.
Sure.
You can create a lot of attractions for the people to come to a destination where they have a choice of different hotels, and build those integrated resorts. And for this, the government should make some land available and attract investors from overseas and people who build it.
Some bit of work is happening in that, in terms of the China Harbour and that sort of development that's happening. Great, wonderful. Raj?
I would say that a country's economy travels on its roads, and roads are vital for people to be traveling in masses. 4 people in a car is a lot cheaper than 4 people traveling by air. Not that I'm not a proponent of air travel. So I would singular focus on improving the infrastructure, roads, connectivity, so that speed of travel is increased, and hubs along the way, whether they're motels or whether they're hotels or convenience places, that can be that can do a lot for any country. And I would suggest Sri Lanka already focused on that would further propel it. Thank you.
Hansen, anything that comes to mind that you think Sri Lanka should do?
I think
we were talking earlier about the flights.
Yes, I think first thing is about flight. It takes me about 8 hours from China, and we have to stop at Bangkok for almost 1 hour. be here. I think from China to Africa, we already have 3 direct flights from Guangzhou to Nairobi, from Beijing to Johannesburg, but we don't have any direct flight so far from China to Sri Lanka, and it's almost fully booked from the Sri Lanka airline. I think it's great potential and great opportunity for business. So if we can have the direct flight from China to here as soon as possible, I think it's a great help for the business.
Sure. So I think just to wrap up quickly, I think air connectivity is going to be important, especially with the feeder markets, China, India, Europe, where the tourists are coming in, and at the moment the connectivities aren't that great. I think more regional airports within Sri Lanka so that people can travel easily to other destinations. I think the Southern Expressway was a great development. It opened up the other locations outside of Colombo where people now visit a lot. And similar, I think development needs to be on infrastructure policies being more, and I think landowning policies for foreign direct investment into Sri Lanka are some of the things that we'd probably like to focus on. Integrated development is and sustainable environment development is what Peter said. Great, ladies and gentlemen, it says time's up here. Just now, as I conclude, thank you very much for being wonderful listeners. Not that you had much of a choice, but regardless, we will take. I'm trying to find a familiar face here. A couple, maybe 1 or 2 questions, if we have the time.
Sure, why not? Let's make time. I think one of my favorite descriptions of this discussion so far has been Mr. Mattmuller calling Sri Lanka Sleeping Beauty. And there are many, many princes out here trying to bring it alive.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that.
Wonderfully
I think one of the important things that we talk about is, I think we throw terms like policies, government policies out there quite lightly, but what we also look for is very specific description of those policies, and I think that's extremely important for investors looking at Sri Lanka as a destination for them.
Yeah.
In terms of specifics, what would you all be looking for from the government, do you think? Let's start with you, sir.
I would suggest a single window clearance so that when investors come in, it is easier for them to get all the approvals needed to get the business going. Thank you.
Sure.
Sure, sir.
I think airport is important.
Yeah.
It's the face. When you come into a country, and I always say, look up at the best. It's probably Singapore. The moment you arrive there, you feel at ease. Everything works very well. And it's possible to do it. You hire enough people, you don't have long queues. And you build something nice in a tropical setting. I think this is important, that the rest was mentioned, transportation, roads, and the infrastructure, to have that in place.
Absolutely.
But to have consistent policies for overseas investors. Not that when a new government comes, everything changes.
Yeah.
At the moment, we pay on every dollar, they pay 30% taxes, 10% service charge, 50% VAT, plus other taxes. That's quite hefty for everybody coming. So please, don't bring the taxes further up. And Gerard mentioned earlier this morning, in Ireland, they reduced the taxes, and look what happened.
It does add up, then, doesn't it?
Yes, it adds
You reduce
up.
it, you bring in more travelers.
Yeah, they kind of said it all, I think. It's in terms of specifics, right? Right now, the real focus, I think, is in roads and airports and skies and consistency of clearly written and described policies which are consistently applied for a number of years in order for us to be able to get the industry up and running in the right way.
And so what about you? When you look at what having operated and continuing to operate in China, what have you seen the kind of incentives and help specifically from the government that you received that has enabled your company to flourish from the private sector?
Yeah, I can give you an example. The reason why we choose Bangkok as the headquarters for Southeast Asia is the policy from Thailand government is encourage capital from China from outside to invest with 100% on the company, with some conditions like it must be the headquarters for at least 2 countries, Also some encourage for the internet, for the, some environment protection, something. They have the policy very clear since last year. So we got the book, we analyzed the policy. That's why we choose the first stop in Bangkok. So I think South Asia has great potential. Is definitely is our potential market. So I think the more clear of the policy, how to say, is kind of policy to encourage the capital from China, from all the country outside, to invest in this place with some conditions, just like Bangkok. I think it's gonna be great for us.
Clear communication as well.
Of
right?
course.
Lovely discussion, wonderful job.